So these little fire starters that I made myself, like I said, they're kind of hard to light with the fire steel, so we'll use a lighter on them. There's a little edge under here because I cut the toilet paper tube in half, kind of, and then rolled it up to a smaller size to stuff the stuff in there. So if you just peel up one of the edges and then put a lighter to it, once the ridiculous amount of wax that I put on there melts, it'll light up. So we'll just leave that burning over there for a while. Move some other stuff out of the way so I don't catch everything on fire. These Coughlin's fire sticks are kind of the same thing. They're a little bit easier to light with a fire steel, but my hands are in kind of an awkward position, so I'm just going to use a lighter. And the butane lighter's out of butane, so be sure to fill that up. Oh. It's kind of windy out today. We'll use our other fire starter to start this one. And we'll just let that go for a while. Both of those are pretty waterproof, so not a concern if they get wet. Then the petroleum jelly and the cotton balls, all you have to do is just reach in there. They're kind of messy. Just grab out a little bit of it. You don't need a whole cotton ball. You can just pull out maybe half of one, a third of one, but just kind of pull part of one out. You can see they're nice and gooey. And then we'll just fluff it up a little bit. And then we'll use the fire steel to light that one. Or the the fire starter next to it will light it up. Let's try another piece. You can see all these fire starters burn for a pretty good long time, so after this first step of getting the process started, if you obviously have other stuff nearby, you can get it going pretty easily because you're going to have a good long time to get it started. So the way to use a fire steel is just put it down into or right next to the tinder that you're trying to light, and then use some pretty decent force to just press down on it to get some sparks going. There we go. Hopefully I didn't burn too many hairs off my hands doing that. So let all those go for a little while. And then finally we've got the chunk of fat wood. It's a little bit more complicated to use than the other ones, just because you have to prepare it just a little bit. You can't just put a lighter to it or use a fire steel on it. I mean, you could, but it would take a little bit longer with the lighter. So you're probably wondering what the duct tape for. I'll show you what that's for. One of the nice things about duct tape, besides its obviously other applications, is that it's very sticky. So if you have a problem with your tinder blowing away in high winds, you can just scrape it onto the duct tape. You won't have problems with it blowing away. So we're just going to cut off a little piece and use that. You might also be wondering where I got blue duct tape from. Well, I was at Big Lots and saw a sign that said super extreme cold weather duct tape or something like that, and I was like, well, duct tape's pretty awesome, so cold weather duct tape must be even more awesome. So I picked up a few rolls of it, and it's been pretty good to me so far. So to prepare the fat wood, all you need to do is just stick it next to the duct tape and use your hacksaw scraper to just scrape off some little curls of it onto the duct tape. You want the curls to be kind of small and light and airy, just because that way they'll be easier to light. And then I've got some larger chunks that I cut off earlier that we're going to use after that gets lit, because these are not going to stay lit for a super long period of time. So we got a little pile scraped off. We'll gather that together. One of the other nice things about duct tape is that it's relatively flammable, so once it gets going, or once the fat wood gets going, the duct tape will light and continue to burn. You can see I'm getting carbon from all this stuff burning all over my hands. So I've got some larger chunks of fat wood down here that we're going to stick next to that other little pile. I just scraped these off with that Swiss Army knife that I was just using a second ago. And these are just a little bit larger chunks, so they'll burn a little bit longer. And it's the same thing as how we lit the petroleum jelly cotton balls. So we're just going to take the fire steel, put it down there in the tinder, and just make some scrapes down in there. There we go. Hopefully you won't be doing this on concrete like I am, because you'll end up with a bunch of busted knuckles. But put that stuff together. And then the one tinder that I didn't explain were the little cofflins, cotton with the wax in them. Just because they're basically the same as the petroleum jelly and cotton balls, they're just a little bit less messy. So we'll let this stuff continue to burn, just so you can get an idea of how long these things will burn. All of them will go for a pretty decent amount of time. This fat wood has actually been outside for a few days, and it's been raining for pretty much all of those few days. So you can see that it's relatively waterproof. Depends on how much resin is in there is how waterproof it is, but this stuff is pretty high resin content, so you shouldn't have any problems with any water on it. You're probably thinking this is a lot of stuff to have in a fire starting kit, and you're right, it is. Some of the stuff is definitely redundant, which is a good thing, but I just wanted the person that's receiving the kit to get an idea of what's out there, and what works well and what works for them. So you can obviously pare this down into smaller pieces. The other thing I kind of like to explain is about the magnesium block. It's basically the same thing as the chunk of fat wood. You would just scrape small pieces onto a piece of duct tape or onto a little pile, and then use the attached fire steel to get that going. The only thing about this is that it's only going to burn for maybe a second or so, so you need to have something else right next to it that'll be ready to catch that flame, just because it's not going to go for very long. So you need something else to keep your fire going. That's pretty much it for the kit. Obviously this is the only starting a fire. There's a lot other that you have to do after this. So make sure you have some other second stage tinders and larger pieces of wood, and even larger pieces of wood, a big pile of wood to keep your fire going. I'll try to get some videos up soon about what to do in that case. So that's it. Thanks for watching the video. I'd like to give a special thank you to my assistant who helps me out with all my videos, Argo. So thank you, Argo. If you have any questions, you can reach me on forums.goingprepared.com. My username is Storl on there. Those are my forums, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.